Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Today, we're showcasing some of the cards made by my patrons this month, and I gave them a pretty out there challenge. You may have noticed I've been making a bit of a push for more domain videos recently, and because this is the 4th month of the year, and domain is a 4-player format, I figured what better time than now to see what kind of multiplayer machinations my patrons can brew. Now, if you aren't familiar with domain format, the elevator pitch is that it's Yu-Gi-Oh's answer to Commander, encouraging you to build a deck around your favorite archetype or mechanic in a way that emphasizes creativity while letting you play some busted cards. If you want a more detailed breakdown, Yu-Gi-Oh! Commander has a great video on the subject, so give that a watch, then come back here to see the kinds of nonsense that's been cooked up today for the April 2025 Custom Card Showcase. Today's episode is possible thanks to viewers like you, as well as my patrons. If you like what I do here, I would super appreciate it if you'd subscribe to help us reach another wonderful milestone video, and if you want to support me directly while getting some awesome benefits, check out the link to my Patreon in the description below. First up, let's talk about some support for a series of cards that were already made to work in singleton decks. Orbital Hydralander has been a wild monster in a number of brews, especially ones that use a diverse monster count, summoning out a gigantic creature, which then gives you a way to fill your graveyard, and if you commit to the bit, non-targeting removal as well, especially with the help of monsters that can quickly remove themselves from the graveyard to help maintain a singleton monster count. Looking at you, Fairy Tale Snow. It's even got a little support module of its own, and now Rebel King Lucifer is looking to expand on that with even more Hydralanders. Let's check out this sinister group of dark machines. Hydralander Probe is a level 3 monster with 0 attack and defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and if you do, you can send all of them to the grave if no cards excavated have the same name as each other. Otherwise, shuffle them into the deck. If this card is sent from your deck to the graveyard, you can banish this card to special summon a Hydralander monster from your grave in face-up defense position, ignoring summoning conditions. However, if you have at least 2 monsters in your grave and no monsters in the grave have the same name, you can special summon a machine monster from your grave instead, ignoring summoning conditions. But you can only use one effect of this card per turn, and only once per turn. This is a fantastic introduction. While nothing about these cards makes them exclusively usable in Domain, its on-summon effect will basically always go off due to the singleton rules, helping to fill your grave with all kinds of goodies. Heck, all these bonus effects will be online, so look forward to some really killer value. A trend we'll see is that these monsters not only have an effect from the hand, they also have a trigger when sent from the deck to the graveyard, synergizing not only with future effects that we'll see among these cards, but also with Orbital Hydralander's own mill. And for what it does, getting a free machine out of your graveyard seems pretty swanky, though which ones you include in the deck are going to be up to your personal preference. You'll want to probe around the card pool for your favorite. Hydralander Flyby is a level 4 monster with 1000 attack and 1500 defense, and if you have 2 or more monsters in your grave and no monsters in your grave have the same name, you can discard this card to the grave to send a Dark Machine monster from your deck to the grave, except a copy of this card. If this card is sent from your deck to the grave, you can target a Hydralander card in your grave other than a copy of this card and add it to your hand, then discard a Hydralander card. And if you have at least 2 monsters in your graveyard and no monsters in the grave have the same name, you can target 2 Hydralander cards in your grave instead. So we have a Foolish Burial while in the hand, and Recursion if we mill. Hard to go wrong there. Especially because Flyby will be able to trigger each of our new Hydralander monsters' mill effects, as well as setting up an even more devastating archetype that fits very neatly into Hydralander's domains, Orchist. And let me tell you, you have not lived until you've cycled through a whole Orchist combo and pulled all the little knobs and levers on that contraption. Time sure does fly by when you're having fun. Hydralander Skylab is a level 4 monster with 1200 attack and defense, and if you have 2 or more monsters in your grave and no monsters in your grave with the same name, you can discard this card to the graveyard to add a Hydralander spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent from your deck to the grave, you can target a card on the field and destroy it. And if you have at least 2 monsters in your grave and no monsters in your grave with the same name, you can target 2 cards instead. We'll get to the Hydralander spell and trap support in just a bit, since none of it exists in the core game, but trust me, we've got some pretty fire ones coming up, and if you mill it, you pop even more cards. Hard to really expand on that, just a really good enabler if you draw it, and a powerful demolisher if you don't. Don't exactly need to be doing work in a Skylab to understand that sweet science. Hydralander Horizon is a field spell card that, when activated, lets you add a Hydralander monster from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, if any number of cards are sent from your deck to the grave by a card effect other than Hydralander Horizon, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave, though you must have at least 2 monsters in your grave and no monsters in the grave with the same name to activate and resolve this effect. If any number of Dark Machine monsters you control would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can banish a monster from your grave instead, with a different name from every banished monster. Notably, this protection is not once per turn, so as long as you have differently named monsters, which, you know, is the whole point of Domain, you can keep banishing them to keep your dark monsters safe. Other than that, we have a consistency booster to nab any of our on-theme cards, and it adds to our mills once per turn. It doesn't do anything with those mills, but you can find more stuff to loot out of your graveyard, making it a scrap scavenger's wonderland. Really branching out to new horizons with this one. Hydralander Changeout is a normal trap card that you can activate if a Hydralander monster you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect. Special summon a Hydralander monster from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, and if you do, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave. Then, if you have at least 3 monsters in your grave and no monsters in your grave with the same name, you can apply these additional effects, setting this card face down instead of sending it to the graveyard and destroying a card your opponent controls. So it's reusable replacement removal that also mills you more cards to potentially trigger more effects. Hard investment to say no to. The only real problem is that the only Hydralander worth summoning with this is the big boss. The rest of them don't operate very well on the field. In fact, by pulling them out of the deck and onto the field, you're actively making them worse. With the exception of Probe, which actually does have an on-summon effect. Now, this could all be here to set up another wave of support where we start getting alternate boss monsters, but as it stands now, it's kinda cool, but not really change outstanding. Overall, these cards are about as pure of an expression of Domain gameplay as it gets, while fitting into Hydralander's whole brand. Some of them might be a little too overtuned, and the fact that these branch out to machines in general means you really are doing crazy stuff with Orchist here. But hey, you got 2 additional players to deal with. One of them has to have the out, right? Next up, I wanted to cover Millennia's cards, but they are all going to be lumped together, and that's because they largely do the same thing, but for different genres of cards. One of the problems with playing lore decks in Domain is that even though we are seeing more and more cards integrate the larger lore into single powerful deck masters, it's not always comprehensive. Playing Bestial Dispater can get you most of the branded stuff, but forget about playing any of the good Therians. Mo Yi is great for scooping up Ice Jades, but still leaves out Incredible Ecclesia. And don't even get me started on how one is supposed to play a good Zephyra build. And even if you could put all of them together in the same deck, some just apply certain summon restrictions that are anathema to other parts of the deck. But what if you had a series of cards that could just brute force the inclusion of entire lores by jamming as many archetypal cards onto a single card's text as possible? That's what these cards seek to do. White Chronicle Archiver is a level 4 light dragon monster with 1800 attack and 1000 defense that, if normal or special summoned, lets you reveal a Fallen of Albaz, Dogmatica Ecclesia the Virtuous, Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous, Aluber the Jester of Despia, Springan's Kit, Tri-Brigade Kit, Sword Soul Mo Yi, Ice Jade Adrian, Therian Lily Borea, Sprite Blue, or the Bestial Lubellion from your deck, then either add it to your hand or special summon it. And if you do, for the rest of this duel, you can only summon Fallen of Albaz, Fallen of Argyros, monsters that list or mention Fallen of Albaz, and also branded Dogmatica, Despia, Tri-Brigade, Springans, Sword Soul, Ice Jade, Therian, Sprite, and Bestial monsters. Also, during the main phase, as a quick effect, you can tribute this card, and until your second end phase after activation, ignore summoning restrictions applied to you by your monster, spell, and trap cards and effects. Also, pay 300 life points each time you resolve any monster effect, hitting you with a miniature version of Masquerade's own tax effect. Essentially, you can play this as your deck master and get all those archetypes into your domain. When played, it gets you any number of starter cards from all those archetypes, which means it works with almost any starting hand, and by tributing it, which puts it back in the deck master zone by the way, you get to play as if none of the archetypal locks applied to you. Branded Fusion no longer keeps you limited to fusion monsters, Sprite Starter lets you play numbers outside of 2, and you can perform Xyz summons while Sword Soul tokens are on the board. And we see this pattern across the next few cards. Broken World Archiver is a level 6 Dark Aqua monster with 2100 attack and 1500 defense, very cheeky, that when normal or special summoned reveals a Visa Starfrost, Scareclaw Reichheart, Tearlament's Rhinoheart, Kastira Riseheart, Manadium Reamheart, or Vita Kalanta from your deck, then either adds it to your hand or special summons it. And if you do, for the rest of the duel, you can only summon monsters that list or mention Visas Starfrost, and also Visas, Scareclaw, Tearlaments, Kastira, Mannadium, and Veda monsters. And you contribute it to lift the summon restrictions like the last monster, but this time whenever you resolve a monster effect, you have to banish a card from your hand, field, deck, or extra deck face down each time you resolve a monster effect, with the deck one presumably talking about the top card of your deck. World Legacy Archiver is a level 2 light Cyberse monster with 0 attack and 2100 defense, and when it's normal or special summoned, you can reveal a World Chalice Guard Dragon, World Legacy World Chalice, Crawler Soma, Crusadia Maximus, Nightmare Incarnation Idli, or Mech Knight Orcust Girsu from your deck, then either add it to your hand or special summon it. And if you do, for the rest of the duel, you can only summon World Gears of Theological Demiurgy, Lib the World Key Blade Master, Avita Rebuilder of Worlds, Neverending Nightmare Absorber, and also World Chalice, World Legacy, Crawler Mech Knight, Crusadia, Guard Dragon, Orcust, and Nightmare monsters. And during the main phase, you can tribute this card as a quick effect, and until your second end phase after activation, ignore summoning restrictions applied to you by your monsters, spell, and trap cards and effects. Also, your special summoned monsters on the field cannot activate their effects unless they're linked or in the extra monster zone. Lastly, we have Sinful Spoils Archiver, a level 7 Dark Illusion monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can reveal a Snake Eyes Poplar, Diabellstar the Black Witch, Diabell's the Original Sin Keeper, a Stellar of the White Forest, Elzette, a Zamana of the White Forest, Goblin Bikers Gone Wild, or Morgana the Witch of Eyes from your deck, then either add it to your hand or special summon it, and if you do, for the rest of the duel, you can only summon Morgana the Witch of Eyes, and also Diabell, Snake Eyes, White Forest, Azamana, and Goblin Biker monsters. And during the main phase, you can tribute summon this card, and until your second end phase after activation, ignore summoning restrictions applied to you by your monster, spell, and trap cards and effects. Also, you must banish a spell or trap card from your hand, field, or graveyard each time you resolve a monster effect. Overall, it's not an elegant design, but it gets the job done, acting as heinous starters that also kind of put you under the same restrictions as some of those themes' worst floodgates. But there is one big consequence of this design that I've got to point out. While the first effect of all of these monsters seeks to give you all of the archetypes needed to play the entire lore, but is meant to restrict you to only playing those cards, the second effect of all of them literally wipes that out for the whole turn. Now, one might understandably think that your deck would just be so packed with all of those cards that you wouldn't have room to play anything that's outside of that realm, but don't forget that White Chronicle Archiver is a light fiend monster. And yeah, you have to tribute it to get it off the field, meaning that even if you did jam Fiendsmith in there, White Chronicle Archiver is not a one-card combo in that regard. But don't tell me we can't find a way to play Lori to get into all of that. Just saying. These cards very clearly have the good intention of trying to allow you to play a storyline deck, but it does highlight the dangers of letting you bypass certain caveats. Lastly, we have some pretty chaotic cards from Frankie. One of the downsides of Domain is that, like with any multiplayer format game, it lasts a lot longer than a normal version of that game. So if you have somewhere to be, it's not exactly easy to pick up and get a round of Domain in. Trust me, as someone who keeps trying to put those kinds of games together, you're committed to it for a while. Unless you play cards that are meant to turbocharge the speed of the game by strapping it to a rocket launcher and watching it whiz by. And these cards seek to accomplish just that. Painful Domain is a normal spell card that has each player revealing a monster from their deck with at least 100 attack and defense. The player who reveals the monster with the highest attack defense adds any card from their deck to their hand, but they lose half their life points. You can banish this card from your graveyard, and a monster you control gains 4,000 attack and is unaffected by card effects, but is banished face down at the end phase. But you can only use one effect of this card per turn, and only once per turn. Now, granted, there are a lot of things that need to be fixed about the problem-solving card text here. It's not clear if you're checking the combined attack defense value of each monster, or just the highest number stat provided. The second effect should also state that it's unaffected by other cards' effects, so that it can actually get that attack boost and the self-banishing. But the best part is the potential for politicking. You could play this in a deck that runs a lot of high-powered monsters, but offer someone else the win so they can grab a card that you might all need collectively, or so that they owe you a favor. There's also the implication that because the winner loses half their life points, they better be careful, because in the grave you have the ability to wipe out the rest of their life points, so, you know, play nice. It seems simple, but there's actually a lot going on here, making it a pretty painful choice all its own. Layer of Domain is a field spell card that prevents the lowest life point player from being attacked directly. The highest life point player can draw 2 cards during their draw phase, but can only attack with a single monster during their battle phase. And if there are less than 3 players on the field, destroy this card and each player takes 2,000 points of damage. I get that last effect is meant to be some kind of deterrent, but if you have more than 2,000 life points and your opponent doesn't, this just wins you the game if you activate it. Or heck, can result in draws if both players are under 2k. Not a very satisfying ending to the proceedings. Now, the other effects are pretty cool, helping to give players a reason to attack people other than the underdog. And being on top has its perks too, though it does limit your aggression should you choose to accept it. I vibe with this, just don't let the person playing it think it's deeper than it is. Doesn't exactly have a lot of layers to it. Tyranny of Domain is a counter-trap card that, when any player summons a monster or activates a card effect, you pay half your life points to negate the summon or effect, and if you do, destroy all cards that player controls. Then, that player takes 4,000 damage, but you can only activate 1 copy of this card per duel. Wow, talk about brutal. This has the potential to do some serious damage, though I have to say, you can't just put Domain on a card and make it appropriate for the setting. This doesn't incorporate anything about the multiplayer environment. Honestly, I would just straight up play Solemn Judgment, but also Megaton Magical Cannon in regular Yu-Gi-Oh! The crackback is outrageous. Heck, I can already hear the Counter Fairy and the Dinomorphia players rapidly approaching our location at this minute. It may already be too late. And that's all the cards I wanted to show off this month, and they sure were doozies. And those are just the ones I thought were fit for public consumption. There are some other outrageous ones, including a whole series of cards based around Uno, but I wanted to save that for the live showcase. Join me on my Twitch April 25th, link in the description, because I'm going to be showing off and grading all my patrons' custom cards for this month, which means there's still plenty of time for you to join the Patreon and have your cards submitted to be shown off as well. Don't worry, they don't have to follow the theme. They just won't get as good of an awesome score. And speaking of all the support that I get, today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales that even come with their own lore and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media, and Sir Knight JCB, Nebula Navigators 3rd Dynasty, 50 Gigabytes, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Battle Axe, Kane Senpai, Charlie Mercury, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Copperbottom, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Great Big Pillock, Hair Bear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Marion James E. Picata, Mike Cook, Millennia Asta, Muse Clark, Neon Yami Nair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Pat Boos, Rank 10 Trains, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sonic 21 Blast, The Critic of Innocence, Thievery Coast and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders Ally Vatnia, Animasta, Anthrak, A Random Pup, Baden von Titty Sprinkles, Beluga Master, Blitzwolf, Chaz Ghost, Chibi Gohan, again, Christopher Fuss, again, Chris B, Cool Trainer Dark, Dante Lawson, Dr. Entity, R.I.P., Eki Bullock,